I have a tabletop RPG question. How do you portray groups that are slow to move, or otherwise too argumentative to not seem incompetent to exist? Do you mean the player group, or do you mean a narrative NPC group within your specific kind of faction? That's a really good question, actually. Willow, are you asking how... So let's say you're running a game, you're DMing a game, and you've got an NPC faction within your kind of fantasy world, and you want that faction to be constantly talking bureaucracy and not actually doing anything. Willow, an honest answer is just look at how reality actually works. Look at how many people spend ages. Let's say you've got... People love power. So you've got a Committee 1, Committee 2, Committee 3, Committee 4, and instead of... Thinking about it like this, instead of having Committee 1 answering to Committee 2, answering to Committee 3, answering to Committee 4, have Committee 1, 2, 3, and 4 made up of similar but different people all overlapping within one area. So let's say that you're in a fantasy city and you want to put up a statue. You'd go to the city planning commission and say, hey, can we do this? And they'd say, yep, that's absolutely fine. You can put a statue up. So then you go to the person that actually owns the land that you want to put the statue up on, and they'd say, yeah, that's absolutely fine. We can do that, no problem at all. I own the land. You can put a statue up there. So then you go to the stonemasons who want to put a statue up, and the leader of the stonemasons says, actually, no, I don't want to build that statue for you because I hate the person in the city planning office because they won't give me permission to do this. So you go back to the city planning office and say, hey, I can't do the statue because the stonemason won't build it. And they say, okay, cool. In that case, get a different stonemason. So you get a different stonemason, but then you can't do that because the actual person that owns the land has a hatred for that stonemason. You just make it people. People forming groups, and each group thinking they've got ultimate authority for why something does or doesn't work. If you imagine the system of government as 3 interlocking gears, it's a great picture. It's and if you put 3 kind of notched gears together, they don't turn, because if one of them turns one way, one turns the other, it will lock on the third one. That's exactly how it is. You just make it like real-life government. That's what you do. You have multiple groups of people all trying to work together, and all of them want different things. That's pretty much exactly how it works. You described interaction in management and dev team. Interaction in anyone and anything. So the UK is one of the worst things for doing this. Right now, there is a high-speed train network, a single rail attempting to have been built between London and the north of the country. It's called HS2, High-Speed Rail number 2. And it's been going on right now for, I think, 14 years. And they have put millions upon millions upon millions of pounds into doing this. They have done millions of surveys. They have not built many miles of track at all, because local government has to check with larger government, has to check with local authority, has to check with builders, has to check with this. And I'm not against safety checks. I'm very much for safety checks. I am against endless bureaucracy of anything being stopped. You look at the amount of high-speed rail networks that Germany has built, that Italy has built, that Spain has built. They're like, hey, this would be a good idea. Everyone goes, yep, good idea. It happens. They have an incredible country. In the UK, HS2 has not happened, but they have spent millions upon millions upon millions kind of consulting about what should happen. And there's a thing in the UK called eminent domain, which is where the government can force you to sell private land that you own to them if the need of the land is for the good of the public. So let's say you've got a bunch of farmers where they want to stick a train line. If the farmers don't agree to sell their land to the government will come along and say, eminent domain, we are buying this land off you. Here is less money than the land is worth. The land is now ours. And what's happened is the government has done that, but then realized that they actually can't build HS2 as fast as they want to. And they're scared that if the next government comes along and does it, then they will take credit for doing it and the current government won't get the credit for it. So what they've then done is sell that land that they have eminent domain purchased to their friends to hold. So when the next government comes along and says, hey, HS2, I want to build it, their friends are like, actually, you can't, we own this land now. And it's this massive bureaucratic mess where nothing's happened because politicians are all awful people. So, if you want to understand how to make a system of government not do anything, just make a normal system of government.